Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about how to solve linear equations in one variable. Before you can solve a linear equation in one variable, you first have to know how to identify whether it's a linear equation in one variable. So there are three things you want to look for. The first thing you want to look for is that there's actually only one variable. The second thing you want to look for is that there's an equal sign, because you can't have an equation without an equal sign. And then the third thing you want to look for is that there is no exponent on the x, or there's an understood exponent of 1 on the x. Once you have those three things, then you have a linear equation in one variable. So I'm going to give you some examples, and I want you to tell me whether they are a linear equation in one variable or not. So I'm going to start with 5x plus 35 equals 0. Is that a linear equation in one variable? If you said yes, then you are correct. There is one variable x, there's an equal sign, and there is no exponent on the x. And so that makes it one linear equation in one variable. What about 5x squared minus 35 equal to 0? Is that a linear equation in one variable? If you said no, then you are correct. This one has an exponent of 2. The exponent of 2 makes it non-linear. What about x over 4 minus 5 equals 0? Do you think that is a linear equation in one variable? If you said yes, then you are correct. This one has one variable, no exponent on that variable, and it also has an equal sign. Okay, what about 0.7x minus 0.8 minus 0.1x? Is that a linear equation in one variable? If you said no, then you are correct. This one doesn't have an equal sign. If there is no equal sign, then it's not an equation. All right, and one last one, let's see. 3x plus 4y equal 7x. Is that a linear equation in one variable? If you said no, then you are correct. This one, it has an equal sign, but it has two variables, x and y. So if it has two variables, it cannot be a linear equation in one variable. So it's important for you to be able to know how to identify the type of equation, because that will let you know how to go about solving it. That's why I emphasize knowing whether it's a linear equation in one variable or not. Once you know it's a linear equation in one variable, then there's a certain way that you can solve it. And it's using two particular principles. The first one is called the addition principle of equality. The addition principle of equality. And the addition principle of equality says that if you have two things that are equal, such as A equal B, then you can come and add something to one side. And as long as you add it to the other side, then you still have two equal statements. So I added C to both sides. So now A plus C is now equal to B plus C. That's the addition principle of equality. There's also the multiplication principle of equality, which is similar. It says if you have two things that are equal, then you can come and multiply both of those by the same thing, and those two statements are still equal. So AC is equal to B times C. Since addition and subtraction are essentially the same, subtraction is adding a negative number, then this principle also applies with subtraction. So if you have A equal B, then you can subtract C from both sides, and it's still equal. A minus C is equal to B minus C. And since division is essentially the same as multiplication, you can rewrite division as multiplication of a reciprocal. Then the division also applies to this principle. So if you have A equal B, then you can divide both sides by C. And you get A over C is still equal to B over C. So using these principles, you can solve linear equations in one variable. And these principles are the concept of whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. That's where that concept comes from. So let's look at some examples. Example we're going to solve. Example 1 is x plus 4 equal to 9. In this example, you want to think of each side of the equal sign as a house. And think of yourself as the variable x. And the goal is to be at home alone, peace, and quiet, which means you need to get rid of everyone that is in the house with you. So in this case, positive 4 is in the house with me. So in math, we have two sets of what I like to call married couples. And I said this earlier, addition and subtraction are essentially the same. And when you think of marriage, you think of union, two people becoming one. So our first married couple is addition and subtraction. And then the second one you could probably guess is multiplication and division. And I like to use this little analogy. I want to be at home alone, peace and quiet, which means I have to get rid of everyone that's in the house with me. So plus 4. How do I get rid of plus 4? I call plus 4 spouse. Well, who is addition married to? Addition is married to subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 4. And then because of the principle we just talked about, whatever I do to one side, I also have to do to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 4 on this side as well. 4 minus 4 is 0, which goes away. It leaves me with only x on this left side. And 9 minus 4 is 5. And so I've solved for x. I've isolated x. That is the goal, to get x by itself. So the answer is x equals 5. And you can check that by plugging 5 back into x into the original equation. So 5 plus 4, does that equal to 9? 9 is equal to 9. So yes, it checks out. Okay, let's do another example. Example 2. 4x equals 24. So again, think of each side as a house. I'm the variable x. I want to be home alone, so I need to get rid of the 4. This time the operation is 4 times x. So in order to get rid of the 4, I have to call the spouse of multiplication, which is division. So I am going to divide 4. And because of the principle, the multiplication principle, whatever I do to one side, I also have to do to the other side. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4, and that leaves me with x, because 4 divided by 4 is 1, 1x. You don't have to write the 1, you can just write x. 24 divided by 4 is 6. That leaves me with x equals 6. You can check it by plugging 6 back in for 4. 4 times 6 is 24, which equals 24, so it checks out. Let's do another example. Example 3. 3x plus 4 equals 7. So again, think of each side of the equal sign as a house. And you don't have to draw this. I'm just trying to paint an analogy here. Paint a picture. The goal is to get home alone. So I have to get rid of the 3 and I have to get rid of the 4. So now the question becomes, which one do you get rid of first? Okay. So here's another analogy. You're having a party. You have friends and family over. Who do you ask to leave first? Most people say friends. It varies from person to person, but friends, because friends are typically the ones that are furthest away, as in relationship wise. Family is typically closer, so you usually ask your friends to leave first, then your family second. So in that case, using that same analogy, you want to get rid of the people in the house that are furthest away from you. So if I'm X, 3 is the closest thing to me. So I need to get rid of the 4 first. And again, this is a plus 4. So to get rid of a plus, you call the spouse of addition, which is subtraction. So you're going to subtract 4 from both sides. Because remember, whatever you do to one side, you also have to do to the other side. 4 minus 4 goes away. You're left with 3x. 7 minus 4 is 3. So now you have to get rid of the 3. In order to get rid of the 3, This operation is 3 times x. You call the spouse of multiplication, which is division. So you're going to divide 3. And whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you also have to do to the other side of the equal sign. So that whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Make sure that it's on opposite sides of the equal sign. That's a common error that I see often. 3 divided by 3 is 1. That leaves me with 1x over here, which I don't have to write the 1. All right, just x. And 3 divided by 3 is 1. So x is equal to 1. Okay, now I want you to try this one. Negative 8y plus 6 equal to 22. So take a moment, pause the video, and I want you to try to work this out and see what you get. Okay, so let's see what you got. So u or y, you got to get rid of the negative 8 and the 6. Which one do you get rid of first? You get rid of the 6 first. That's a positive 6, so to get rid of 6, you subtract 6 from both sides. You're left with negative 8y here and 16 here. Then you should have got rid of the negative 8. That's negative 8 times y. So to get rid of that, you have to divide negative 8. When you divide negative 8 by both sides, you get y equal to negative 2. Did you get y equal negative 2? If so, you did it perfectly and you're ready to move on to the next part of solving linear equations. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you can continue to watch my math videos, and make sure you go on to watch the next part as we go into more complex linear equations.